The book of Ecclesiastes begins with the words, it says, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. So you can see how the source of this seems to be King Solomon, who's the son of David. He was the king in Jerusalem. And also, as we look at the content of Ecclesiastes, it's something that Solomon, it looks like his life, what he could have written. But the teacher here, that word teacher, is the Hebrew word kohelet. And kohelet this is the only place in the Bible where this word is used. We're not 100% certain of what it means, but it seems to be related to the other Hebrew word kahal, which means like an assembly or a group or gathering. And so kohelet was probably the leader of that assembly. So that's sometimes it's translated as teacher or preacher. And that's where we get the word Ecclesiastes, because that's the Greek translation. Ecclesiastes, ecclesia is the group or the church. So just to explain where we get that bit and how it's related to Solomon. But so we have this teacher or kohelet who is a person, the king. He's speaking this to a group, to all of us, and he starts out with the words absolute futility. Absolute futility, or as actually it means the most futility of futilities, or the most meaningless of meaninglessness. What is that? Basically, he's saying everything is meaningless. Now, you might say, wait, that can't be in the Bible. That's not what the Bible says. Well, the Bible says that. The Bible doesn't dodge the difficult questions. And if you take a look at life and you think about what death is bringing to us, that all of our lives are going to come to an end. That's Ecclesiastes. The author of it is looking at that and being like, so then what meaning is there in what we're living? One day we're going to be forgotten. It's dealing with this question that a lot of us are going to deal with or question at some point, and you might too. Is there any purpose or meaning to life? Now, so the word the word there for meaningless, sometimes it's traditionally been translated as vanity, but people don't really understand the meaning of vanity. So I think it's good to look at other translations. But hebel is the Hebrew word, and hebel means like a smoke or a vapor. So the idea is like you're trying to grasp at vapor and you can't catch it. So how do you translate grasping at vapor that you can't catch? Well, it could be translated as it's meaningless, it's an absurdity, it's your frustration, it's futility. It's just empty. It's nonsense. He's saying life is that. Gosh, that's a tough book to read, isn't it? But it's not one we should skip. So Kohelet, he then does this experiment. It's like a thought experiment, but actually he makes his life an experiment. In that he is seeking after wisdom, and he says he acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were in Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I applied my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness, and to know folly. He was going to try to know, to chase after all paths, to seek is there meaning. But then what does he find in trying to pursue wisdom, but also in wisdom or in foolishness? All of it is just a striving after the wind. You can't catch it. It's meaningless. In verse 11, he says, so then I considered all that my hands had done, all the toil I expended in doing it. He strived after doing work, and then he finds, no, it's all vanity. It's a striving after the wind. He tries several experiments chasing after pleasure, including drinking wine, laughter, but in chapter 2, he says, But the chasing after pleasure and sensual experience, it turned out to be futile. He chases after money and possessions, and he gains all the wealth in the world, but it ends up meaningless and futile. He chases after wisdom, meaningless, futile. He chases after work, and it's meaningless and futile. So what he finds is that time and death are going to bring everything we do and turn it into vapor. That as time goes on, people are going to forget. We forget. I forget stuff. You forget. 100 years from now, no one's going to remember you were in this class. Maybe your name's on a transcript somewhere, but probably not even your great-great-grandkids will care. It's going to be meaningless. And you think about it and look at it. I mean, do you care who was sitting here 100 years ago? Our school wasn't quite in existence then, but never mind that. It's a truth. You look at it, you're not going to find meaning. But what he's saying is there's not meaning in work, in possessions, in just living it up. None of that. He found satisfaction. Well, one passage in Ecclesiastes that is there are a couple songs written on this. It says there's a time for everything. For everything there's a season, there's a time for everything under heaven, a time to give birth, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw stones, and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to avoid embracing, a time to search, a time to count as lost, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to be silent, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. But what do you gain from struggling through all this and going through all these seasons and time? It says, I've seen the task that God has given the children of Adam to keep them occupied. He's made everything appropriate for its time, and he put eternity in their hearts. But no one can discover the work God has done from beginning to end. Now, that phrase, he's put eternity into their hearts. There's something, when we look at ourselves, we can sense there should be something more. But then when we look at the world and we live in it, we see, but there doesn't seem to be. It's futile. But then there's this sense, there needs to be something more. Where does this sense come from? This eternity in our hearts that God has put there. But when we look out, it's going to be the same fate for everyone. Whether you're wise or foolish, whether you get an A or you get an F, whether you work hard or whether you're lazy, whether you become wealthy or poor, it's the same fate for all of us. We're all going to be buried 6 feet under. That's what the author of Kohelet is noticing. That King Solomon saying, there's not meaning because of death. So he says we need to find pleasure in the little things. There's nothing better for a person than he should eat or drink or find enjoyment in his toil. So this I saw is from the hand of God. The little pleasures you have on the way. I find when I come to school and I walk around the pond early in the morning and it's the crickets are or the birds are chirping, or it's very pleasant often, and those little experiences, we need to grab onto them. That there's a goodness there. But overall, he's not saying that means you just live life in hedonistic pleasure. It's not that there's meaning there. But we need to take the things God gives us as gifts along the way. But balance this statement of that there's nothing better than eating and drinking and finding enjoyment in work. But also he says it's better to go into a house of mourning than into a house of feasting. It's better to go to a funeral than to a party. And why is that? Because when you're going to the funeral, you're like recognizing the truth. Parties, you're trying to avoid the truth. But when you go to a funeral, you see death is coming for all of us. It's the destiny for all of us. It's coming. So One in chapter 7, you see that he says, I found this one thing. This one thing's true. God has made man upright. So he made us righteous. He made us good. But they have sought out many schemes. So as he's seeing a truth that there is a right, there's an eternity in our hearts, a sense that there's something beyond, but there's also a rightness, a justice, a goodness that we know ought to be there, but we've gone after many ways. We've chased after many schemes, and yet none of us, no man, has the power to hold on to our spirit. No, we don't have power over the day of death. That's coming for us. Ecclesiastes 9 verses 2 and 3. It's the same fate for all, the same event. It's going to happen to the righteous and the wicked, the good and evil, the clean, the unclean. You know, whether you keep the sacrifices or you don't. However good you are, or the sinner, you might swear or you might not swear. Like, you have filthy language or not. It's an evil in everything under the sun. It's the same thing that's going to happen to all of us. In chapter 9, verse 3, it says, also the hearts of the children of man are full of evil. Madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that they go to the dead. He basically says, the world's like this. We all go crazy. We're mad. There's an evil. Like, this madness, this evil. Like, if you look around at the world and you're like, man, it's all messed up. And then we die. He's saying that's what he's seeing as he looks at life. So what's his conclusion? What does he say then should be the result of looking out at the world? Whatever you chase, you might be trying to find meaning in something, or in a relationship, or in a work, or maybe trying to get the right major, find the right person. You want to make something of your life. You're not going to be able to do it. King Solomon tried everything. Nothing worked. But so what should we do? Well, chapter 12, verse 1 says, so remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of adversity come. Before the years of age come. He uses some poetry here to describe old age. He's saying, don't wait until the end to think about what's ultimate, to think about what's important. But before the sun and the light of the moon and the stars grow dark, he's talking about old age. So when you're young, be thinking about who is your Creator? What's important? Oh, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of adversity come and the years approach and you say, I don't have any delight in them. Remember Him before the sun and the light are darkened, the moon and the stars, the clouds return after the rain, on the day when guardians of this house tremble and the strong men stoop. The women who grind grain cease because they're few. He's talking about when your strength gets weak and you can't do stuff anymore. Don't wait until you can barely hear, until you can barely see. Don't wait before the silver cord is snapped and the gold bowl is broken and the jar is shattered at the spring and the wheel is broken into the well and the dust returns to the earth as it once was and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Then the teacher ends his words saying this: absolute futility, says the teacher. Everything is futile. He ends the same way he started, saying everything's meaningless. Everything's meaningless. In verse 9, so at the end of Ecclesiastes, it's the narrator's voice. Says, so this teacher, Kohelet, in addition to being a wise man, he constantly taught people knowledge. He weighed and explored and arranged many proverbs. Solomon was also the beginning of the book of Proverbs. He gathered many teachings and proverbs. The teacher sought to find delightful sayings and write words of truth accurately. The sayings of the wise are like cattle prods. Those from master collections are firmly embedded nails. In other words, he's trying to poke us with these and push us on. Thinking about our ultimate destiny and the meaningless there. It's not meant to give you despair, but to push you to do what's right and not to waste your life. It says these sayings are given by one shepherd, but be careful. Beyond these, be warned. You can study a lot, and there's no end to the making of many books. There are so many books. There is so much writing, and you can study forever, and it's just going to tire you out. Much study wearies the body. You're like, that's why I want this video done, Dr. Gimple. I need to take a rest. Right. Verse 13, when all has been heard, the conclusion of the matter is this: fear God, keep his commands. Hey, remember what I said? The central idea of the wisdom literature? Fear God, keep his commands, because this is for all humanity. God will bring every act into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether good or evil. So that's where Ecclesiastes ends. But what's the application here? If you're struggling with cynicism or nihilism, and you're like, there's no meaning here, and that is, the Bible is a book for you. It agrees with you. You're on the right track. If you're using your own strength, you're not going to find meaning. Like if you're sensing a madness throughout the world, and you're like, man, that's all going to mess up. What on earth is happening? The Bible agrees with you. He's recognizing there's a righteousness in there, but we've all chased after evil ways. One phrase that's repeated over and over in Ecclesiastes, well, there's a couple phrases. One is, it's all meaningless, a chasing after the wind. But also one thing said that there's nothing new under the sun. What's happened before is happening again. We're not the first generation for everything to be messed up. Is that for our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people back in the time of the Bible? There's nothing new under the sun. But ultimately then, what's important is that we need to put our eyes beyond this futility and meaningless. Put our eyes on the Creator. The wisdom literature, these books we've been studying, all of them point to Jesus. Every single one to the Messiah. What is the most ultimate meaningless act? The most absurd, futile in all of history? It's when Jesus Christ, the one innocent one, was nailed to the cross. That's what we're celebrating today on Good Friday, if you're watching us on Good Friday. That's when I'm recording it. But is there anything more meaningless than the human beings killing their Creator on the cross? The unrighteous taking the life of the righteous. The Ecclesiastes is pointing to that. Like, where's that's the most meaningless of all meaninglessness. Look at Job. Job, why do the innocent suffer? The one righteous, innocent one who suffers, who cries out, God, why? Or my Father, why have you abandoned me? That is Jesus on the cross. He's the one righteous one who suffered for us. And the book of Song of Solomon, who is the love of lovers, who is the greatest love that can be given, is that Jesus Christ gave his life for you. He didn't just say, I love you, and not mean it. He put his whole life he died for you. The righteous dying for the unrighteous. He was the creator of all meaning. We're the ones who robbed the world of its meaning. And yet he gives his life for you because he loves you. But then something new under the sun happened. On Sunday, we're going to celebrate Easter, and Jesus Christ raises from the dead. Ecclesiastes is saying death kind of removes all meaning. But Easter Sunday, when Jesus rises from the dead, that's something new that's happened under the sun. Now there's hope. Now there's meaning. Death has been defeated. And that's the good news of Easter. That is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Fix your eyes on that. He brings meaning and hope and life. So we're going to move into the prophets. And yeah, I hope you have a restful Easter. Thank you for watching this extra video. Now we're caught up.